today, I am here to give you the assurance that I have not forgotten you.
If we want to see the new evangelization become more than just jargon, if we want to see it grow legs and gain traction and change the world, we have got to take seriously our responsibilities as husbands and fathers, and especially as sons of God.
I want to propose to you then that something that our world is desperately in need of in the midst of this crisis is Catholic Christian masculinity.
If you want to be a good father, then bring your children to confession with you.
But I can't get there unless I become a man of ascesis, a man of asceticism, a man of training.
A man not doing penance, a man not disciplined, is not a man.
You guys have upped your game.
You know what, guys? I gotta say, I love the concept of Man Show.
Warning: the Catholic Man Show is about to begin.
Welcome to the Catholic Man Show. We're on the Lord's team, the winning side. So raise your glass. Adam Minahan here, sitting with David Niles. No Juan, no Jim this evening. There was somebody who rated our show recently, Dave, and they were like, Juan and Jim are the best. Adam and Dave, you guys are okay.
You guys are cool, but
5-star though.
Juan and Jim, I listen for them.
Yeah. And the yummy scale.
So I was talking to a guy recently who was telling me, he's like, yeah, dude, I listen to your show every day, like in the shower. It's like,
don't tell me that.
He was like, it's like, I listen to you in the car too. It's like, my wife was giving me a hard time because I'm listening to you guys in the shower. And I was like, yeah.
You know he's going to be in the shower listening to this episode at some point. And
well, we were laughing about it, and I said, like, well, next time she gives you a hard time, ask her, like, if she would rather you be listening to a podcast from, like, an incredibly beautiful woman. Like, if she'd feel better about that. And because I think that will put some perspective on the, like, you know what? No, actually, I'm
Adam
so
and Dave
glad
are good.
you're listening to those guys. Yeah, way better than, you know what? I take it back.
Yeah.
Great show, honey.
Yeah. So we caught a four-wheeler on fire today.
Yes. I love these days.
Yeah.
Wait. Was it your four-wheeler?
It was my parents.
Okay. So it's not your four-wheeler.
Not mine.
Okay.
No. So my parents bought
Were
these.
you hoping to inherit the four-wheeler someday?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. So
Also
this story can still continue as funny.
Yeah. So my parents bought.
I'm really sorry, Mr. Minahan.
Yeah. So my parents bought these little four-wheelers for the grandkids to, drive around the house and, make laps and all these kinds of
Not
things.
the inside.
Not the inside. The outside.
The outside.
And they were driving them today. Beautiful day, beautiful Sunday. Great.
It was a great day.
Great day to just be out with family and be outside. Let them run around. We played soccer. We did all these different football, everything. We were playing all these sports and let them run around and ride the four-wheelers. And they rode them basically to the gas ran out. And so they ran out of gas. My dad went over there. He started filling it up with gas, and I guess it started back up. I'm not sure exactly how it started.
Without
I don't know if he started it or if it they're not super nice four-wheelers.
Okay.
So you have to kind of push start them. It's not like one of those most of the time.
Do you?
A lot of times, yeah.
Is there a key Is that just because sometimes they need help?
They just need help.
Okay.
And so I don't know if it just started. Okay. And so he's filling it up with gas, and it overflowed, and then it hit the spark plugs, I guess, and it just goes, whoa, and
was your dad okay?
Dude, it singed his hair. It was crazy. It just went up in the flames. Luckily, I was right there. I was there, and luckily, my daughter and the kids were took a step back, so I pushed them back, and I ran and got the water hose, and because there's a grass fire going on now, so I'm getting the grass fire first, because
you can't put a gasoline fire out with hose.
Right. So I'm getting the grass fire out first, then I come back over to the four-wheeler. It's up in flames. It is engulfed in flames.
Yeah.
And I know, like, okay, if I put it down and hit the gas, it's just gonna go, and it's gonna spray everywhere.
Yeah, because the fumes, gasoline, the liquid gasoline doesn't burn. It's actually only the fumes of the gasoline.
So like I went underneath the four-wheeler with the water and just tried to get it wet so the electric wires or like whatever it is, like hopefully it wouldn't burn. Like I was just hoping it wouldn't
cool it down at least.
Cool it down. And it got it down to basically where it was just basically hovering kind of at the gas cap, like where the fumes are. And so then we were able to put it out.
I wonder if you could like put enough water on it, it might stop the fumes from rising.
It was pretty dude, it was hectic. It was pretty crazy. And I guess apparently like through this whole time, like while I was doing that, Anna ran inside and I guess she kind of froze and like my wife like realized something's wrong because she was like, something's wrong outside. And my Haley was like, what is it? And Anna was like, something is wrong. And she's like, okay, this is not good. So they come running outside just when everything is all, dude, it was a total buzz.
Was it a little bit of a cluster?
It was a total buzzkill. Yeah.
But then afterwards,
he was like, okay, good.
Let's have a beer.
Yeah. I deserve a beer.
We feel like we saved the day.
Yeah. So that was what we did today.
That's I don't have anything nearly that exciting.
Yeah.
I went on a bike ride with my kids. It was.
Do you have a bike?
Dude, I do have a bike. So I ordered a new bike for Elizabeth, my oldest.
Okay.
At Christmas. Well, around Christmas. We didn't. None of the bikes in my family. We have an interesting bike policy.
Dude,
the bikes do not belong to the children. All of the bikes belong to me.
Oh.
They're my bikes.
You have quite a collection.
Yes. They're family bikes. And you are expected to treat this bike with respect.
I hate bicycles.
I know you do. I know.
I hate them.
You also have... The girls they ride substantially different from boys. But the expectation is that you're going to take care of this bike because you're going to ride it now and then it will belong, one of your siblings will ride it. So like, this isn't your bike. This is just the one you're riding right now. Okay. So I was going to get a bike for Elizabeth and I was looking at like, okay, man, like there's this kid's bike. And I was looking at the like minimum inseam, like basically how tall do you have to be to ride this bike? And then one of them was listed. It's like, oh, it's only like an inch higher. And this is like a bigger bike. And it's actually cheaper because it was on like, I forget, like Black Friday or something, big sale, whatever. It's on a bigger discount. So I got it. And when it came, it was pretty obvious. Elizabeth cannot, like, this is my bike. I ride this bike, not her.
Yeah.
And so it's a girl's bike, technically, but it's
super cute.
It's like black. But it does
black girl's bike.
It does have like handlebars that aren't straight. The handlebars that kind of curve back at you.
Okay.
And it has the like the bar, for like a girl's bike frame swoops down to allow for like a dress to be in the front.
Right.
So it's like that. Otherwise, when you look at it, it just looks like a bike.
Yeah.
So it's not like pink. I
bet it looks cute.
It just is a bike. Actually, it's a really nice looking bike. I really like the company.
I didn't know you collected bikes.
I do collect bikes. I really recommend this company. It's called Priority Bicycles. They're made in America. They're more expensive than like if you go to Walmart and buy
that's hot.
Like a bike.
Yeah.
You're basically just buying a piece of junk from China.
Oh yeah, I've bought many of them.
But if your kids are just gonna like wear out a bike, a piece of junk from China might be the way to go.
Yeah.
I have.
Yes.
The gears on these bikes, dude, I cannot figure them out because there's like a little box on the rear axle. It's tiny. And when you switch gears, there aren't like gears that like chain. It's not a chain that goes from like a big gear to a smaller gear. I have no idea what is happening inside this tiny magic box where somehow
you're gonna have to take it apart.
It changes.
You're gonna have to take it apart,
dude.
We're gonna have to do that.
I feel like I want to.
After Easter, I'm gonna come over to your house and we're gonna get a beer.
We're gonna destroy it and maybe figure it out.
Yeah,
it's I don't know what is happening inside this and it's tiny.
It's you know what I do know? This whiskey is hot.
Okay.
It is ridiculous. So this is one of your Scotch Malt Whiskey Society whiskeys.
Mine isn't. I'm not getting.
Oh, dude, it is hot.
I wouldn't say that.
Disney hold back.
So we don't know. We were debating. It's Disnae. Disney. I don't know. Is it supposed to be Disney?
Dude, it's almost 65% alcohol.
But all of them are that way.
Yeah, but I mean, like this one, it has alcohol like punch.
So here's what it says. Here are the notes. In a mince nose, dripping with vinegar-sodden sheep's wool. Right? Because when I smell, it's like, oh, gosh. Is that sheep's wool soaked in vinegar? Charred mutton, beef stock charred mutton.
So you got the sheep's wool and then the mutton.
Yeah, it's very Scotch.
Very
I mean, the Scotch theme is pretty heavy.
Yeah.
With beef stock with Chinese spices, smoked chilies, paprika, tar, honey glazed smoked ham, and wood ashes. So much going on within all of these within a dense thicket of peat smoke. Water suggested to us horse boxes, oily rags.
I have no idea what the horse boxes is.
Well,
I don't want to know.
You wouldn't know. You wouldn't.
Yeah, I'm not a farmer.
Farmhouse cider, concentrated herbal peat smoke, motor oil, and boiler fumes. A real blast. That's what it says. A real blast. The neat palate pulled no punches with lots of smoked peppermint tea, aniseed distillate, iodine, carbolic acidity, pure natural tar, mild disinfectant, barbecue charred meat, and salt, Dutch licorice. Anyway, it keeps going. I'm about halfway, so we're not going to finish this.
I put like
I'm going to try it with water.
30 drops of water.
You had a lot, yeah. But it's okay. It is this barrel strength.
It's ridiculous, yeah. When we get back, hey, I want to tell you what I did yesterday.
I want to hear.
Not as exciting though as setting a four-wheeler on fire, but
Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. I'm David Niles. Here with Adam Minahan. We're drinking some Disney Hold Back. It's a product. We didn't even mention who the distiller was. It's a product of Glenturret, which is a Highland whiskey. You know what? I added water, and I feel like it's hotter now than it was before I added the water.
I don't know if I liked it. I'm going to have to sit on this for a little bit.
It has
I'm not sure.
Some very interesting flavors going on.
I'm not sure about this.
But
we'll see.
I'm
open to being.
I can tell that I'm enjoying it a lot more than you are.
Yeah, I have not. Maybe I just need to.
I don't know.
Settle in.
I don't know if it was like the 6 chocolate chip cookies I had. That's like influencing my palate in a like fantastic direction.
You just have like a buttery palate right now,
gosh.
and just yeah.
Is that hints of dark chocolate? I don't know.
So yesterday I processed about 50 pounds of ground venison.
Okay.
So, I got a deer.
Manual crank?
No.
Electric crank?
So I got a
electric grinder?
So Haley and I splurged. We got a very nice stainless steel electric grinder.
Okay.
This year for our St. Valentine's Day present to each other. Yeah, it was so romantic. I mean, dude,
I love you so much.
We're about to be.
Let's grind
by the way,
meat
we're
together.
about to be 12 years.
Yeah, dude. This is Pamela and I's 10th anniversary this year.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I know.
I don't feel like it's like, man, we're getting old. But so I got a deer this year. Luke got a deer. Jude got a deer, and then somebody else got a deer and gave it to us. So I had 4 deer.
I love it when that happens.
Yeah, so I have 4 deer in my freezer, and so what we did was we basically just quartered them up, vacuum sealed them, put them in the deep freeze. It was like, we'll worry about this later, right? And this weekend was later. So we got them all out. I don't have, what I don't have? And this is something I wish that we were sponsored by. This would be great. If there's like a really good knife shop that, would like to sponsor the Catholic Man Show, we would love to talk to you guys, because I do not have a really good like carving knife.
Yeah.
So I used my case pocket knife through the whole thing.
Okay.
Because it's super sharp.
The little one?
Yeah, my little
like
kid.
the little fold-out pocket knife?
Yeah, use it through the whole thing. Our kitchen knives are terrible, dude. Like we got them for a Christmas present, or I'm sorry, for our wedding present, and 12 years ago.
Yeah,
and they don't hold. They like you sharpen them. They just don't hold it. They're
we have some.
They just don't hold.
Ours are decent.
Yeah,
I mean I got them for Pamela for Christmas one year. Like
yeah.
And I thought, like, oh, she's going to love this. Turns out it was, like, more a present for me, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't put them in the dishwasher.
Right. Yeah, I know. Because it's not actually about the dishwasher. It's about them hitting other things.
Right. It's about them. They bang into stuff. Yeah. Also, if you hit them with the honing rod. Yeah. So, like, you just wash them by hand. Hit them just for a second with the honing rod and put them back in the block. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Anyway, so I did that. But I did 4 deer. And it's like, that's a lot of ground.
That is a lot.
Especially
like, because you're going to be cutting up against bone. I mean, it's just inevitable. I'm sure, like, someone like Brandon Sheard or like a butcher, they're going to be able to do it. Because it's a deer, I don't really care. It's either like I can tell this is going to be a roast, and you can, like, kind of follow. You can feel like, okay, here's a big muscle.
Right.
Okay, and you can follow the lines of the muscle. That's really easy to do, and just cut it off.
Right.
Otherwise, it's all going to be ground, you know.
We ground almost everything. Except for the back straps, we ground everything.
Yeah. I'll save the loins and the back straps. But the rest, all the shoulders.
Dude, the front shoulders are so much work for such a little meat.
I typically don't take the front shoulders.
You don't? Mm-mm. Yeah, I mean, there's so much work. Anyway.
So look, coyotes got to eat too. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I did that. I had the boys stack we got some red oak firewood. A couple weeks ago and got it all chopped up, and it was in the back of my truck, so we got that unloaded and stacked. And then I smoked some delicious pork butt for my son's first birthday, John Dominic.
Yeah.
Dude, I was so embarrassed when we were at the Catholic Comedy Conference, and we walked up to the Sisters of Life. No. They were Dominican sisters.
Yeah,
they were Dominican sisters, and we were talking about our families, and they were like, "Oh yeah, so what's the name of your kids?" And I went through them all, and then I got to my last one, John Dominic, and could not remember the middle name to save my life.
You know what?
I'm there in front of Dominicans,
it happens.
And can't remember Dominic. That's pretty bad.
It is ironic, isn't it?
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, so John Dominic, our youngest, turned 1 this week, which is awesome. He's just such a bundle of joy. Like, right now is a great age. Like, I really enjoy this age because they're developing their personalities. They're laughing.
1 to 3 years old, I just love.
I love this age. They're laughing, they're giggling, they're learning new things.
Yeah, they're constantly surprising you.
Yeah, it's just so much fun. So
yeah.
Hey, by the way, if you guys I know that Lent is basically, we're halfway through, or almost halfway through Lent, and the Lenten missions are probably already happening in your parish. But if you guys are interested in having us out for to give a talk at your Catholic Men's Conference or something like that, make sure to reach out to us. You can go to thecatholicmanshow.com. We have all of our, what is it called? Recommendations and testimonials and things like that you can check out. Would love to come to your place and speak at your parish or your men's conference. Give us a shout. Also, thank you to all of our new patrons. We got some new patrons this month. Jim is actually not here. He told us because he's actually having to work through some of the shipping.
He's mailing stuff. So if you're waiting on something from us,
he's coming.
He's working on it.
Yeah. So. But you can go to patreon.com/thecatholicmanshow. Guys, we've been doing this for almost 8 years. And so we have a lot of content for you over at the patreon.com. So we have a lot of audiobooks. We have a whole
How many do we have? Do you even know?
I think it's like 30 something audiobooks.
No, I meant episodes.
Oh, dude, I think we're over 400.
Yeah. I would think so.
But on Patreon we have I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 audiobooks that we've done that we had professionally done. We have a course on the 5 ways of St. Thomas Aquinas that Dave and I went through with Carlo Broussard. We have...
Which is a fantastic course.
A workout course with Pat Flynn. Mm-hmm. We have another course on the Eucharist with Carlo. We have a lot of content that is basically available to you
as a patron.
Mm-hmm. So go to patreon.com/thecatholicmanshow. Support us. All of your support goes back into the show and helps us to continue our mission. I have nothing else. This is the transition to the topic if you'd like. Or whatever you'd like to talk about.
No, I was just trying to think of that's okay. Let's talk about the topic.
Okay. This is your topic tonight. I'm really excited about it because it's a different topic than what we were going with.
Right.
And I wasn't to be honest with you, wasn't like super stoked about the topic you pitched at first. And then you pivoted. You called an audible.
I did.
The day of, which doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
But
it's not unheard of.
It's not unheard of, but it doesn't happen often.
I think it happens more than you realize.
Oh.
I'll just tell you that.
Okay.
Sometimes you don't realize, like today, I went through three topics.
But I'm excited when you said this over. I was like, oh, this is gonna be a good topic.
So I found a book put out by Tan. Tan Publishing is awesome. Mm-hmm. Everything that they put out is so solid, and I don't mean that it's just orthodox. I mean that like, it's just it's like they'll be like, oh, this is quotes from the church fathers or from the doctors of the church or from just fantastic. It's not like they just have a guy or who's just putting out new stuff. I mean, which they do. They have guys putting out new stuff, but they are so good at presenting something in a beautifully published, nice hardback editions if you want, but also just stuff that's just classic, rich church history. Like this is part of the rich tradition of the church, right?
Yeah.
That you wouldn't find if they weren't the ones out there publishing it. So I really like Tan. So this is from a book, and it's really actually more like a booklet that they put out called 25 Ways to Crush the Serpent. I believe it was published in 2020.
Consecrate yourself 25 times to the Blessed Virgin Mary.
Boom! End of the episode. Thanks for watching. No, but basically, a lot of this is a compilation of writings from people like Dom Lorenzo Scupoli. He was a priest putting out stuff in like 1818, early 1800s.
I think he has another book called This Tremendous Lover.
Okay, Scupoli.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was a well published guy. I saw some of his other stuff. Robert Bellarmine, Doctor of the Church.
He has a book on the councils that I really want to read. Like, I have the book. Read it. I have it. He has this book on purgatory that I really want to read, and this book on the councils that I want to read because it talks about how what the authority of councils are, the different types of councils, how they formed the church throughout history, and just understand okay, what's it? Everybody talks about the Council of Trent, but what about Nicaea? What about Orange? What about all these other smaller councils and where do they play in? And
right.
He apparently he documents them pretty well. Anyway, I haven't read the book yet. Because I have it.
Right.
But I'd really like to.
It's just as good.
St. Robert Bellarmine is a stud. Very much underrated.
Speaking of studs, also the other main contributor to this particular book is St. Alphonsus Liguori.
Another one he's the moral doctor of the church.
Right. Doesn't get enough play.
He does not get enough play.
I feel like he gets credit.
You know why? Because he's pretty...
he's heavy.
He's heavy.
Yeah, he is.
He's hard-spoken. You know what I mean? He doesn't waver.
But he's good.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll get into it when we get back.
Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. Talking about 25 ways to crush the serpent. This is going to be a really interesting, exciting topic for me as we go through these. There's several things that I really want to touch on. So we have a lot, obviously 25. We're halfway through the episode thus far. So let's get cracking.
What have you been up to lately? Just crushing the serpent, brah.
Yeah.
Okay. So now that we know what we're getting into, also there's some other saints who play that are quoted, that are cited, not as heavily, but Saint Teresa of Avila is in here, and Saint Therese of Lisieux.
Yeah.
Okay, so number 1 this is of the 25 ways, fight valiantly against the devil. Okay, some of these, it's like, all right, yeah, whatever. But then I love this particular book. It's worth going to look at because they have such a pithy, like straight to the point explanation about what they mean. And so I was just thinking how important it is to remember about this, that we are at war, okay? And if you've ever been like trained, if you've done any training on self-defense, you know that when you go into combat, you go like, and you're going to like make a move or push or whatever, you go as hard as you can. Like you go full throttle, like instantly now. Like if I'm going to take you down, I'm not just going to like, try to get you down. I'm going to like go as hard as I can, on everything, boom, boom, and try to with overwhelming force.
Dwight Schrute.
Yes. I will shun you. I will. Okay, but they go on to say that the assistance that you have from heaven is more powerful than all of hell can send to destroy the grace of God in your soul.
I really like that line because there are times when you're struggling with sin that it just feels like the sin is just like grabbing you, like cocooning you, like you're in a cocoon of sin,
totally surrounded.
Yeah, and you just cannot, like it's just suffocating, and you desperately desire to not do that sin anymore. Like you're St. Paul, right? You're talking about like how you desire not to do it, but you do it. You still do it anyway, right? And it just feels like at times you're just like, Lord, why am I just so drawn and gravitating to this sin? Like, can you not fight for me? This is kind of like a thought that you can kind of have sometimes, where it's just like Lord, like why does it feel like that the devil is just like fighting for me so much harder than you are right now? Like, and it's just exhausting, and to be in that state of mind, or state in life. But then you have, this is such a great reminder to turn back to our Lord who's on the cross, and just and stare at him in prayer on the cross as his arms are as wide as they can possibly be, and saying like, I gave all this for you. Totally. But it's hard to do.
Yeah, but
right?
I think it's important to be vigilant and diligent, right? Because your disordered, your passions, those little sins that you're talking about, they're not just going to like go away. Okay, we have to make war against them. Okay, and so that they say, fight valiantly and do not fail to mortify yourself, for it is by making continual war on your disorderly affections and vicious habits that you will gain the victory, acquire the kingdom of heaven, and unite your soul to God for all eternity. Right. So we have to, it's like they're not just your vices; they're not just going to disappear.
Right.
You have to fight against them.
Well, you have to cooperate with God's grace, right?
Correct.
And so, like that.
But the thing is, He's giving you the grace.
Right.
You have to activate your own will,
right,
and move against those vices in your life.
Yeah.
Number 2, trust in your guardian angel.
Love this one.
From the first moment of its creation until the settlement of its final destiny, the angel of God is by your side.
I just don't think guys think about like utilizing their guardian angels.
I know I don't. There are some moments,
I don't either.
There's some moments when I do like have a like, oh, you know what? I should talk to my guardian angel about this. And I always feel really good about it,
Yeah, when I go into heavy meetings or like situations in which I know there's going to be tension or turmoil, or there's going to be something that I'm not really looking forward to being a part of, I try to remember to always ask my guardian angel to pray with their guardian angel for this moment.
You know what? I have done that and found incredible success.
Me too. Me too.
With doing that.
Shockingly, almost like that worked that well.
Correct.
That really worked well.
Right. I think because your guardian angel has unique influence over your passions, over your just emotions and your
Yeah.
They have the ability to govern and protect you
if you allow them.
Right.
You have to give them.
You certainly do.
You have to give them the authority to do so.
So they list 4 things.
Or that's the wrong terminology, but you have to cooperate.
Yeah, which I have done. I have said specifically to my guardian angel, like, look, I want to give you complete control over like my thoughts and everything.
Right.
Like as much as you're allowed to do,
I want you
to do. I want you to do all of it. Yeah. Okay. Like, even if it means like hurting me a lot.
Right.
Okay.
It's like maximum strength prescription drugs is like figure out what's gonna kill me and then back it off just a little bit.
Yeah. Like if I need physical suffering, like if you need to like smack me literally in the face to stop me from sinning, yes. I want you to know I say
full permission.
Yes. This is your permission slip. I've signed. So the 4 things that the guardian angel, this is your guardian angel's concern in your soul, are to awake you from sin, to keep you away from all persons, places, and things that might cause a relapse in sin, to help you persevere, and to help put to flight the devils that beset your path by inspiring prayer and meditations.
I just think that that's beautiful. I would love to do an episode. I would love to get, what I'd love to get is Joey Spencer back on our episode. We did an episode with him with with Angels.
Yeah.
I would love to get him back on the episode and talk about specifically guardian
I would
angels.
too. I think that would be fantastic.
He just did finish his dissertation on angels.
Nice.
Yeah.
How do they know? How do you know if he's right?
Oh, dude.
People seem to know.
He's got the coops.
Yeah, he can get in.
Yeah.
Okay, so number 3 is fidelity to your baptismal grace. Basically here they're just talking about like think about all the how often do you renew your baptismal promises, and how many people actually like when we say it every year, at Easter or if you go to baptisms, you'll renew them. Do we say all of these things in the creed and what we believe? And have you ever like stopped to think about line by line? Would I be willing to die for that particular faith?
Yeah.
I have too, and like you have to really decide. Yes, I guess I would. Like that this point is so important to me. Yes, I would die if someone said like, "I'll kill you unless you don't believe in this." I'm just like, I believe it. We just think about it, because they're making the point. How many people say that with their words and then completely abandon it with their day-to-day actions, like the way they live?
I was just talking to my brother-in-law today about godparents, and just like, do you realize the oath that you're taking as a godparent?
Yeah.
And how seriously do you take that? Like, he and I were talking about how it's very easy to just kind of slough off or be like, yeah, I'll be your god.
Almost like an honor. Like,
yeah, it's
like it's about you.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what we were talking about, right? Is that like it's almost like, oh yeah, I got to be.
I'm the godparent.
Right.
It's
but then if you actually think about the oath that you're taking,
yeah,
to God and His church, the heaviness, and the moral culpability that you're gonna have because of this, like. Are you praying for Are you praying for your godchild? Like, how often do you pray for him?
Every day. If it's anything less than every day, then you're failing.
I know, and I was like, because I fail. I typically hit an adoration. That's when I hit all of my godchildren, and then I realized, yeah, that's not enough.
It's like, not. No, I have them on my daily rosary.
Yeah, man, I gotta do better. I'm gonna step my game up.
You got to. But with basically, they're saying, just think about that, and then they go on to say, but God sees all things, and He will not be mocked. He that desires to live well and to die well, let him enter into the chamber of his heart, and not deceive himself. Let him seriously and attentively consider over and over again whether he is in love with the pomps of this world, or with sins, which are the works of the devil, and whether he gives them a place in his heart, in his words, and in his actions. I mean, it's just hard for me to read that and not, in all honesty, accuse myself of a lot of these things.
I was actually reading that and thinking about accusing you as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
As a friend.
Yeah.
In charity.
Adam, thank you. So much. Number 4, you jerk. This one is so important. It's an election year. We need to keep this one. We need to remember this one this year.
I love how that's how you started this. Okay, let's do it. Yeah.
Preserve your peace of soul. Okay? It is an election year, right? Yeah, okay, so. Preserving a peaceful mind in all occurrences of life, your advantage will be very great. But without it, your pious exercise will come to nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. You might be doing a lot of pious things, but if you're not preserving peace, the peace in your soul, which ultimately, if you have lost your peace, which is something that I think this happens to people. It's something if it happens to me, I always make a point to bring it up in confession. Just that I lost, just confessing that I had a moment where I lost my interior peace. Basically, I let something else consume.
Mm-hmm.
That part of me and that part of my soul which is reserved for Christ.
Yeah, and peace is the tranquility of order. So I find that if you're struggling with peace in your soul, the more order that you have in your spiritual life,
that's a great point.
The better you're going to be able to not lose your peace, because it's ordered properly to the highest good possible, namely God.
Right.
And so the more order that you bring upon
in your exterior life,
in
just
your
in the
exterior
day-to-day
life,
things, yeah,
the more peace you have within your soul.
That is a great point. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. I'm David Niles, here with Adam Minahan. How is the whiskey settling in on you?
Well, I added a lot more water.
Uh-huh.
Like, I've added more water to this dram
than probably like 100 drams previous?
Yes.
Yeah. Think about what an investment it is. Like, this bottle of whiskey is going to go so much further than other whiskeys.
So true.
Yeah. Anyway, I want to just we're talking about peace, about preserving a piece of your soul. Because what they say here is that about Satan is that in order to surprise us, Satan does not hesitate to inspire seemingly good designs, but once undertaken are otherwise in effect, as is easily discovered by the disturbing in our inward peace. Which Satan is, God, I hate that guy, but
he's the worst.
To remedy so dangerous an evil, when the enemy endeavors to put us upon some new design, let us beware of giving it entrance too hastily into our hearts.
I mean, this like, really, as long as you have, again, an ordered prayer life, and if you're going to adoration, hopefully weekly, at least once a week, you're living a sacramental life, you're going to confession, you're receiving the Eucharist. These things right here almost take care of themselves.
I agree. I think you're right. I also think that that having a piece of your interior soul is so linked to the next one, which is do not be anxious.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard it said that anxiety is a mild form of atheism.
Yeah, which
is like that's like a heavy judgment, right? I mean, for people, and I think this is like, not that it's exclusively a male thing, but I feel like anxiety is something that men in particular like have a unique struggle with. At least if you're the breadwinner.
Because your family's depending on you, right? And
right.
so and you love your family so much that you want nothing but the best for them. And in order to give them the best, you have to produce. And if you can't produce, then it calls into question how big of a man.
It feels like a judgment on you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So there's from Matthew 5 verse 34. Do not be anxious for tomorrow will be anxious for itself. I think that's just kind of that's a funny line. Don't worry. Look, it'll worry about itself. And they go on to say that anxiety happens to fearful souls who are in continual dread of the enemy. Know then that in anxiety there lurks a poison, which not only infects the first seeds of virtue, but even destroys those that are already formed. What the worm does in wood, anxiety does to the spiritual life.
That's such a great visual.
I agree. So then this is little booklet. I'm telling you, I just really enjoyed reading it today because here's a practical thing. It says, to dispel anxiety, spend at least 30 minutes before the Blessed Sacrament, either in adoration or simply in a church where it is reserved, and conclude with the following prayer. We ask you, O Lord, shatter the pride of our enemies and lay low their contumacy by the power of your right hand through the same Christ our Lord. Amen. I think that you could come up with your own prayer if you wanted. That one, particular. I really like that. I really like the going to adoration for 30 minutes. That particular prayer didn't speak to me a whole lot. I don't know what contumacy means.
I don't either.
I'm sure it's a great word. I'm sure it's like a very rich word that's full of like just the right meaning for this prayer. I'm sure, but I think I'd just make it my own.
Let us know what it is.
Yes, I have no idea. Number 6, another big one here. Believe that you can be forgiven. Okay. When you feel wounded, that is, to have fallen into any sin, whether through weakness or deliberately through malice, do not be overly downcast. Do not abandon yourself to grief. Rather, trust in God with great but humble confidence and excite a lively sorrow for your fault. Such a Catholic thing, like a lively sorrow. Excite sorrow in your soul.
Yeah. I mean, this is something that it has to do with trust, right? Trust that the Lord actually truly loves you, right? And if you read the Diary of Saint Faustina, this is something that I always try to end every mass with. Is the last thing I say is, "Jesus, I trust in you," because His mercy is so much greater than any of our sins could possibly be. When you're in confession, a lot of times this is like something that you're like, I know that I've done this, right? So there've been big sins that I have to confess, and like I kind of like soften it up, like kind of work up to it.
Yeah.
You're over here with a broken arm and you're talking about a hangnail,
right?
In confession, you're like, oh yeah, this hangnail is really bad, and the priest is over here seeing you with a broken arm, and it's like, well, what about that broken arm? You're like, yeah, we'll get to that. But like my hangnail is really hurting, and like I just really messed up. And so,
and he's like, your face is bleeding.
Yeah. You're literally bleeding out of your eyeballs.
Coming out of your eyes. I see it weeping.
No, that's normal. I do that sometimes. It's something that I do.
I'm gonna get there, Father. Don't worry.
And this is just a at least in my experience, it's just a lack of trust in God's mercy. It's that I almost have to warm up to Him. It's like, no.
I do too.
I
know what you mean. But I actually I like make myself, when I go to confession, I start with the bad stuff.
All of it is.
Well, I mean, but I start with whatever the worst thing I got.
Right.
I'm opening up with it. Because also on the flip side, I like to land on a positive. But I like to end, it's like, yeah, that. Oh, and then also some other stuff that's not nearly as bad.
Yeah.
Because I'm not totally a bad guy, right?
My wretched soul. Yeah.
Exactly. And I am the worst.
Yeah. But
not always.
But the Lord, like, when you step into confession, right? The Lord has been waiting for 2,000 years to forgive, to hold you once again.
And really, like, longer than that.
Right. Forever. But
yeah.
Since the institution of reconciliation.
So number 7 is do not despair. The enemy throws on our path a vain terror that causes us to despair over the sight of our past sins. If you perceive yourself in any danger of this kind, take as a general rule that the remembrance of former crimes comes from divine grace and is salutary if it forms in you sentiments of humility, sorrow, and confidence in God's mercy.
This is where God can do great things from bad things.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's so many times where I have felt like, I just can't believe I did this. I can't believe. And like after you've gone to confession and you're thinking about it again, and then you receive this grace where you're thinking about it, but it actually gives you a thought process of like, well, what led me to that?
Mm-hmm.
And why, like, what was it about that sin that I actually desired that?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what was I really wanting? Well, I actually wasn't wanting that sin.
Not deep down.
Yeah, deep down, I actually wasn't wanting that.
Right. You believed that it would give you what you wanted.
I felt like that it would fulfill the desires that I wanted.
Yeah, this is like, this is where cooperation with grace is so important, because God gives us the opportunity in all of these things. Here, Satan is accusing you.
Right.
And God is going to give you the opportunity to make this a moment of grace. But if you don't, like, remember to cooperate, because it's something you have to actively do.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, it's not just your vices aren't just going to disappear.
Right.
if you don't do that, then on the other hand, it goes on to say, if thinking about your past sins causes disturbance and despondency and leaves you spiritless, daunted, believing that you are beyond hope, then it is of the devil. So to me, this is very much like discernment of spirits, where, judging something by its fruits. If how is something impacting you, then you can tell, like, it's good or bad based on its fruits, right? Number 8, concupiscence is conquered by prayer. And I really, really love what they say here. I think this is fantastic. Do not presume on your own strength. This is so even after many years spent in the world, if you have proven yourself against the forces of concupiscence. So even if you have been like, I'm Mr. like spiritual strongman, like I can resist the devil, like, and you've been doing this for years. Even so, do not depend on your own strength, for the devil of lust often achieves in one instant what whole years could not affect.
Yeah. I mean, this is so much
right?
The case.
In one instant, you can just boom
fall. Yeah. And this is something that where you have to think about, like, listen, it's not your doing.
Correct.
Right.
You're not strong.
Right. It's God's grace, and you need to receive our Father's love.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you think about it from a father, like if you have children, if you think about it, like, you love your children regardless of what they do.
Correct.
Right? It's like they don't have to earn your love. The moment that they were born into this world and you looked at them and held them for the first time and you smelled that baby smell and like held them and heard them coo and look at them and felt their warmth, like you fell in love with them. There was nothing that you would not do for them.
Yeah.
And that is just like a sliver and a glimpse of our Father's love in heaven for us. And that's a gift that he gives us as fathers to show and make us appreciate and understand his love for us, so that we can share his love through us to our children and give them a glimpse of his love.
So if we're not depending on him, if we're not orienting ourselves correctly as children, right? I mean, just like that newborn it can do nothing.
Right.
Okay, that's us. We can really just do nothing. We're totally powerless. So we cannot presume on our own strength. The danger is always greatest where there is the least appearance of evil. Impure inclinations imperceptibly insinuate themselves into seemingly innocent friendships by frequent visits, flirtations, and indiscreet familiarities.
You know what I think about here? Sloth.
It is, yes.
I mean, this is where sloth, like, because like you're tired. It's the noonday devil. Mm-hmm. You're at work. And if you take off
and you feel like, oh, everything's going so great, I must, and you're not staying vigilant.
Right.
When the devil is at the door, you're going to stay vigilant.
Right.
But when things seem to be fine, that's when you let your guard down.
Right.
And next thing you know, he's in the room with you.
Right. Exactly. Hey, we're out of time on Catholic Radio. Go check us out on thecatholicmantra.com. We have over like 400 episodes now that we're almost 8 years in. thecatholicmanshow.com. We're going to continue this conversation on the podcast. We're on the Lord's team.
The winning side.
So raise your glass.
And cheers to Jesus. So they give a couple of remedies here for concupiscence and kind of the near occasion of sin. So flee all occasions of sin, which you are more susceptible than to straw. For which you are more susceptible than straw to fire. Do not rely on your own virtue.
Or gasoline to fire.
Or gasoline to four-wheelers. Yeah. Do not rely on your own virtue. Temptation can kindle, and it's hard to extinguish. And then it says, pray 3 Hail Marys upon rising every single day. I think it's like,
I love that idea.
I do too.
I don't do that.
I
don't do 3 Hail Marys in the morning. I consecrate myself every morning.
There's an idea about praying the 3 Hail Marys for purity.
Yes. And also for like the souls in purgatory. I've heard that as well.
Right. What I did is I just took the idea. This is just my own idea. Instead of like praying 3 Hail Marys, because who has time for 3 Hail Marys? What is that, like 40 seconds?
Yeah.
I don't have time. I don't have that time. But when I say the rosary, you pray the 3 Hail Marys for faith, hope, and charity.
Mm-hmm.
I add a 4th for purity.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, hey, it's something, and I do it I do it every day, and like,
love it.
It like worked. It fit into my schedule, so I did it that way. Which nice. you need to prayer. You need to make it work.
Yeah.
Also, you need to make your schedule work for prayer.
It's
both.
I wasn't gonna say it, but
It's both.
It's both. It's definitely both.
Okay, number 9. Do not be distracted by past sins. I think we kind of talked about that, but number 10. Do not persist in sin.
You know what you should do? Stop sinning.
You sinner.
You want to crush the head of Satan?
Stop it.
Just
why don't you just stop it?
Look at me. Look at me. Look.
Stop it.
Don't do that. Yeah.
Stop. You. Go sit down.
Yeah.
The most efficacious remedy against the evil one is to receive without the least resistance to the divine inspiration, which will recall the soul from darkness to light, from vice to virtue, repeating the prayers with great fervor. Lord, help me. Go immediately into confession, and if this is not possible, make an act of perfect contrition every day until you are able to go. Make a firm resolution not to sin again.
Which goes in right in the next one, right? It says, do not wait to go to confession. This is something that I think is so important, right? So I don't know this, and I haven't, I think St. Alphonsus Liguori actually talks about this, but
this section right here comes from St. Therese.
Okay, awesome. But I think he also talks about this, but the day, like, when
he wrote the book on confession.
Yes, he did.
I mean, literally.
Yes. So like, I think that the day of your judgment, like, you're actually going to see how many days you were in the state of grace versus not in the state of grace.
You definitely will. I mean, you will just know. That'll be the kind of thing that you just know.
You will know. And so, like, let's just say the Lord gave you 100 days to live. Like just to put the numbers, like, in easy conceptual manner. Like, if you had 100 days to live, and you were in the state of grace for 55 of them, that 45 days that you were not in, like, almost half that you were not in the state of grace. You know what I mean? Like, but
the only thing that matters
all that matters.
You could go 99 and a half,
right?
Not in a state of grace, and
or 99.9,
right? Yeah.
But
obviously that's not what we do. That's not what we
strive for. That's not what you strive for. So I just say
because that person is gonna. His merit in heaven will be lessened.
Right. We shouldn't tack on the sin of presumption after already sinning, right? That I'll just make sure to get there, in a couple of weeks.
So just listen to what St. Therese has to say about this, because I just thought, like, man, this is just so practical.
Okay.
Those who wish to turn away from a life of sin are often deluded by the devil, who tries to persuade them that they have a long time to live.
Right. That's what I was trying to say.
Right. Oh, don't worry. It's like, look,
you'll
be fine.
Yeah.
I know. He suggests to them that this or that business must first be settled before they can take the steps of going to confession. Others are ready here and now to confess their sins, but then they think of a person or of the priest, and because they know him, they're known to him, they fear to confess out of human respect, and so they delay their confession until another priest may be available. Like, all of these things, right? Tell me all of these things haven't occurred to you at one point in your life when you needed to go to confession.
So there was one time I needed to go to confession, and it was like, okay, I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna normal to my parish. I'm gonna go somewhere else. So, like, I went somewhere else. I looked it up online, and it's like confession from 5 to 6. And I was like, perfect. I'll go straight from work over to confession to this other parish.
Some rando
priest. I'll knock it out and then head home. Perfect. This is great for me. I go there, and, like, I kind of feel guilty about. Like, I was like, is this a sin of pride? Like, is it because, like, I'm just too afraid to actually just admit my sin and, like, think, oh, he's going to think worse of me?
Yeah.
But I was like, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to go.
There's probably something there, but still.
Right.
You're going to confession.
Go to confession. Yeah, go to confession. So, like, I show up there at 5:15 because I don't want to be early. I don't want to be, like, the first one on the line. I don't want him to see me walking in, to confession and be like, oh, yeah, well, Adam's third in line. So, so, like, at 5:15, I show up. I'm there, and I'm like, no one's there. Like, priest isn't there. No one's in line. I'm like, what's going on? So I walk around, can't find anybody. Walk into the secretary's office. She's still there. It's like 5:15, 5:20. It's like, weird. Wow, that's. And it's like, hey, is Father coming? And she's like, oh yeah, he'll be here in just a couple seconds. And I'm like, okay, good, because I was just gonna go to confession. And as I say, oh good, because I'm just gonna go to confession, Father walks right by He's like, I'm here. Oh, you need to go to confession? Come on with me. And like, it's like, well,
great.
Yeah, my being anonymous is.
I'm Adam Minahan. My social security number.
And here's all of my sins.
I live at this address.
Yeah.
It's where I do most of my sinning. Between these hours.
But it was just such a. It was just the Lord.
Yeah.
There's God.
Oh,
moment.
you're trying to sneak. Like, look, I'm gonna teach you today.
Right.
Number 12, avoid mortal sin.
I wasn't ready for that. That was the next one.
But I really love the point they make about that. I mean, this is like, obviously, yes, avoid mortal sin. Do we need to put that on here? But I love what they say, and because this is so true. This is like one of the points that I like this. They say that many people think that stopping mortal sin is the final goal of the spiritual life, and it isn't. And they rightly point out that when you get to the point where you have basically eliminated mortal sin from your life, that is the beginning of the spiritual life. The spiritual life only begins once you have left mortal sin behind.
Some say just the stopping venial sin is actually the beginning of the spiritual life.
Then I haven't started.
Well,
I'm trying to get started, if that's the case. I've been trying for a long time. Maybe I don't have any gas in the thing. I don't know what I need, but
you know what? Never mind.
I think I'm making progress, but anyway.
Yeah.
Number 13. Avoid the near occasions of sin. The power of resistance. Desert the gambler in the gambling house, the drunkard in the bar, and the lustful at the sight of immodesty. It is unhappily true that in an instant one can pass from virtue to vice. But the opposite is not so. We do not pass from vice to virtue instantly. But God forbids when God forbids a thing, he also forbids its near occasions. For example, our first parents were forbidden not only to eat the fruit, but not even to touch it. The Israelites were forbidden not only to adore idols, but not even to possess them. Christ, too, when reaffirming the commandments, not only forbade sinful deed, but also the longing glance, the interior passion, the foul thought, the covetous desire. And then this obviously isn't from, Bellarmine or Liguori, but they put some questions here about, is technology an occasion of sin for us? Do we throw away our time on social media? Does doing so become an occasion for us to calumniate our neighbor? To view vain and useless news, put that in parentheses, news, to see immodesty, which can lead us to the vice of lust? If it is not necessary, we should remove it altogether, which I totally agree with.
Mm-hmm.
Number 14, do not fear the devil.
I don't think that's actually a problem, because I don't think a lot of people out there even think the devil is real, which is ideal for him.
He prefers that.
Right. I mean, C.S. Lewis talks about that.
I think he would prefer for you not to think about him at all.
Right.
And then if you do think about him, to be totally afraid of him.
To think, or to think of him, to think of him as like this little guy in red tights with horns and a pitchfork with a tail.
Right.
Like, this is what Saint.
But those people.
This is what C.S. Lewis talks.
But the people who think about him like that, they think about him as like a character in a play, not as a person who really exists.
Right.
But so
I think, do we actually think about them?
I think if Satan does know, oh yes, you actually know I exist, you know I'm a real person, then he wants you to be absolutely terrified of him, because then you're convinced that he has power, right? Mm-hmm. He wants you to think about him.
He's just a dog on a leash.
Yeah, exactly. He is just a dog on a leash, right? And everything that he does, and Satan will actually admit this in exorcism rites, that he knows that everything he does, like all of his action is only part of the sanctification of people if they cooperate. Right. And he tries to get them not to cooperate, but otherwise he himself is simply a tool of sanctification.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think that we kind of talked enough about that. Fear the torments of hell.
Listen, if you have not read Dante's Inferno, go do that.
Yeah.
Man, I've been reading it. I have so many questions. I have so many more questions about
Don't
Dante's
ask them now.
I'm
Don't
not
ask
going to,
them,
but I have so many more questions about Dante's Inferno.
Well, you should ask Harrison.
I have been.
Good.
I've been bugging him to no end. In the middle of the night, at 10 o'clock at night, be texting him like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" He's like, "I'm not reading that right now," but he has the answers anyway.
Doesn't he? I thought he read it every Lent. Is he not?
Well, not right now because we're recording.
Just got too
episodes,
much stuff going on. Yeah. So number 16 is to know thyself. And I'm just gonna sum this up. Talking about like a lot of times we view ourselves as like, oh, I would be willing to do this, or I know that like I would be strong in that moment, or these are my virtues, and we think it like we really build ourselves up. And then I think like we need to do an honest analysis. Just like this is like business planning 101. You want to come in, what are the strengths of a business? What are the weaknesses? And that's how you address, and you address those things. You capitalize on your strengths, right? You do all of these things to have a successful outcome, okay? We can take those same kind of approaches, and we need to with our own self, thinking about what are my vices? And you're not helping anybody by intentionally deceiving yourself or not being upfront with yourself, but what are the things you really struggle with, okay? Because if you don't get it right, it's not like, oh, a CEO is going to get fired. You will literally get fired in hell, and it's going to suck. Okay? So we need to be upfront with that. Where is that? Yes.
This is also the importance of having good friends.
It is. Yeah, that's a good point.
Because there's so many times where I bounce things off of you and Juan and Dean Garlic, and just people who I really trust, and I know like, hey, you're not gonna sugarcoat something because you care about me, you love me, you love me for and you desire the good for me, you want me to be in heaven, and so like I'm asking you this.
I mean, not as high as I am, but I do want you to be in heaven.
Right, naturally, yeah. But it's like, I know that you desire that for me, and so like I'm asking you this so that you tell me what is it that I should be doing, like in your opinion, like am I messing up here? Again, this is just it's so important to have a set of friends around you that you can trust and that they desire the good for you and that you can bounce things off of and help they can help you illuminate some of the weaknesses that you don't even realize that you have.
Totally, because we all have blind spots to ourselves, right? One of the things that I like to think about here is if you say to yourself like, oh, I would die for my wife, I'd die for my faith.
What do you today?
And then it's, do you?
Right.
Okay, right? Like, because my personal opinion is that if you don't, then you won't. Okay, so if you're not fast, and what does that mean? I was like, well, little ways, dying to yourself in little ways. So are you fasting when the church asks you to fast? Or do you say like, oh, I don't need to, so I'm not going to, because there are only two fasting days that are required. And so that's just weak sauce. I mean, if you're only fasting twice a day, get out of here.
Twice a day?
Twice a year. Okay. Twice a year.
It's like, man.
Twice a day.
I gotta get out of here.
Yeah. No, like if you're only fasting twice a year, like give me, like you're not, man up. There are people out there who need your prayer, and you're like, don't pretend like, oh yeah, you're some hero who would die for the faith or for your loved ones. It's like if you're not doing it, then like quit lying to yourself. A
virtue is a habit, and so you have to get into the habit.
Right. So this next one, we're on 17, so I think we're getting pretty close.
Are you just trying to convince yourself?
Well, it's 25. I mean, it's like we're over halfway.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I have nothing else to do tonight.
Remove your principal fault in parentheses before it is too late.
What does that mean?
This is like kind of like what we're talking about. I think everybody has a principal fault, meaning like this is the
sin that
this
you're
is
holding
the
on
thing
to?
that I struggle with the most. Okay, and once again, back to your point about having good friends, it's having a community helps really. I think helps you identify what your principal fault is when you see, oh, so-and-so struggles with this, and you realize, like, I don't struggle with that. I think that just gives a little bit of perception, right? It kind of like holds a mirror up a little bit, like, oh, and then you have another friend who struggles with something completely different, and you see that they have all these different strengths and different weaknesses. And like the more you can see that in other people, I think it helps you analyze yourself, right? Just because you have these different examples in your close friends to look at. Your ruling passion, be it drink or lust or hate or whatever, will be strong in death, because at death, since it is the crisis in the battle between the powers of light and darkness, the devil, like a skillful general, will marshal all his forces for the final struggle. So we have to. This is the lifelong battle, right? This is the goal of life. Saint Vincent. I thought this was interesting. Saint Vincent Ferrer believed that deathbed conversions were more miraculous than raising the dead.
Wow, that's pretty cool to think about.
Yeah, because it makes sense. People think like, oh, at my death, I'll
sort it out.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be I'll definitely be sorry then, and I'll go to heaven, right? And that is just such a deception, because if you live your life a certain way, don't expect to change in the last hour, okay? Because sin blinds you. The thing is, you won't even know that. You'll be so complacent and blind to the effects of whatever it is on your life.
Yeah, you shouldn't place all your chips on the supernatural grace of the Lord illuminating the ways, the sins of your life at the very end, for you to be sorrowful for them, because that's not a natural thing that's not a thing that happens normally, right? That it can happen, right? There's many times where that happens, right? Even from capital punishment aspects, right?
Sure.
That those who are guilty, about to receive the capital punishment, they are completely sorry for all their sins and die a death in the state of grace, for all we know.
Yeah, praise God. Yeah, we hope.
But those aren't normal circumstances,
right? And so it kind of goes into the next one about avoiding hidden pride. And they just say that the devil often will tempt us with virtue itself. He inspires us with esteem and complacency for ourselves and lifts us up to that pitch that we cannot escape the snares of vainglory. And they say, so fortify yourselves with the knowledge of your own nothingness, and be ever mindful that you yourself are nothing and can do nothing.
Yeah.
Number 19. This is kind of what you said right in the beginning. Grow in devotion to Mary.
25 ways to crush the head of serpent.
Consecrate yourself 25 times.
I mean, so the other day I actually went to Clear Creek. I made a trip there. Because I just needed to be close to Mary. And they have a beautiful statue over there of our Blessed Mother.
Is it the one in the crypt? Is that the one you like? Oh, dude, me too. It's such a beautiful statue. Such a beautiful.
And like, I just sat there and
like, I want to know where they got it, because I will pay money to get that.
Yeah,
like, and
so
put
beautiful.
a grotto somewhere up on my property or something. Oh man.
And I lit a candle and I just sat there, like in front of her, and just like begged her. I said, like, Mother, like, you are the undoer of knots. You are the one who desire for me to love your son more than anybody else in this world. And I desire to do that, but
she desires it more than you desire it.
Right. I desire it, but I desperately ask you to go to our Lord and perfect and purify my prayer and present it to him and beg him to give me the grace to know what his will is for this. And just like, she loves us so much. The things that she does for us in this, in this life, we won't know the power that she has until the other side of the veil, right? Until we're at our final judgment and we realize the graces that she helped bestow upon us.
Yeah, the honor and esteem that our Lord has for his mother.
Yeah.
is so beyond our comprehension. I've heard exorcists say that the demons are incapable of slandering Mary, that they will often say heinous things about Jesus and call him names and things, but they are forbidden and incapable, therefore incapable, of doing that kind of thing to Our Lady. Yeah. Because Jesus loves he's like, you know what, you say what you want about me,
but not about my mom.
But you will not say it about her.
There's times also, I don't know if you've experienced this, but there's been times in my life where I've gone to my mom, like, to talk to her about something, about life, or something I'm struggling with, or asking her advice or whatever. Yeah. And just by going to her and asking for like her advice or whatever, like whatever happened, like it almost kind of broke me down a little bit. It just like emotionally hit me just by going to her.
Yeah.
And asking for her advice, and it was like, and then she gives it to me, and I realized, like, yeah, that's clearly what I should be doing.
Yeah.
And those are those moments like that are so impactful, and again, a glimpse of the reality here on earth is just a foreshadowing or a taste of what's actually happening, in the supernatural world.
So I love what they say here. They say, just as men fall prostrate with fear if a thunderbolt falls near them. Have you ever been a thunder like close to you?
Yeah, where it shakes you and it is.
I mean, I've been like 20 or 30 feet through maybe 20 yards. 20 yards.
I was going to say 20 feet. That's
really close. It was this 20 yards. It struck a tree right outside my house. Mm-hmm. And just the
loud,
how loud it is.
It disorients you.
And even visually, like everything was purple.
Right.
I mean,
it disorients you.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does. So just as men fall prostrate with fear when a thunderbolt falls near them, so do the devils when they hear the name of Mary. It's like, boom. Mm-hmm. Take that. You guys stink. Mary.
She's the best.
She is the best. Gosh, I love her. So number 20, avoid delusions of grandeur. If the devils perceive that we are on the path towards heaven and that we desire God alone, he transforms himself into an angel of light. He urges us to attain perfection, hurrying us on blindly and without the least regard to our weakness. He fills our head with devout thoughts and even examples from Scripture and the saints to draw us into some shameful false step through an indiscreet and perceptive fervor. They go on to say that he will spur us on to excessive fasting, disciplines, taking on vast amounts of prayer and like things. He proposes us to have a notion of performing wonders when really we fall prey to vanity, become dispirited with works that exceed our strength, grow tired of the devout life, and return to the vanities of the world. I mean, like,
that rings,
doesn't it?
Yeah.
Satan, like, he will do that. He will falsely knowing, you need to eat 2 hours of prayer every day. Like you need to fast more.
He'll swing to the excessive, even if the excessive is good. Yeah.
Any excess works in his favor.
Read Screwtape Letters.
Yes, dude, the Screwtape Letters is so on point.
Yeah.
Gosh. So they say, consider that while many are not capable of imitating the austerity of the saints, everyone may imitate them in a specific virtue. Okay, so that when you read about the saints, especially the saints of old, the priest at Clear Creek told us that they are to be revered but not imitated.
Mm-hmm. Not emulated.
Okay, same, right? So consider that, once again, the saints, that they may imitate saints in their contempt of the world and themselves, that we may imitate the saints in their humility and charity, and in returning good for evil in their worst enemies. So, we don't necessarily have to take on all of those austere practices,
right?
But
again,
we can do the spiritual things that they do that are good.
Yeah, each soldier has a unique mission in this war, right? And only you can carry out that unique mission.
Correct.
And so while there are other soldiers around you that are doing great things that move you forward to to the final end and help you and give you insights and gives you courage and gives you momentum. They're carrying out their mission that the Lord has bestowed upon them, just like you should be carrying out your mission that the Lord has bestowed upon you. And so, like, it's only you. Like, the Lord has given you this moment in life to give glory to His kingdom. Like, and how you act on that is up to you.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. Number 21 is avoid rash judgments. I'm done. I'm out. Yeah. This is so hard to do. I have an example of it today in Mass.
Ooh.
So today.
Kid acted up?
In Mass. No.
Oh.
Extraordinary Minister of Holy Communion goes up. And, like they receive communion up there at the altar, because they're going to be distributing communion. So they're receiving communion before everybody else. And they bring the body of Christ over to him. And one of the ministers put his arms across his chest, just to receive a blessing. And, my first thought was like, this guy, he's not even in a state of grace. It's like, I don't think it actually matters. Like, he doesn't have to be distributing Holy Communion. Yeah, but like, you certainly want him to be, right? Like, we're using.
I want him to be regardless.
But it's like, great. Oh, this is the guy. And these are my first thoughts about. And then I tried to like dial it back, like, hey. I don't know this guy. I said that. Like, I tried to like dial it back. Yeah. Like, I don't know his situation, because once again, none of us are judges. We can judge no man.
Right.
We can judge actions, and we're called to make judgments upon actions. Right.
But
I don't know this guy. Right. I don't even know who he is or what his name is, or certainly I don't know his situation. And then the chalice came, and he received from the chalice, and it's like, oh. Maybe he has a gluten intolerance, like, once again, and it was just an example, a moment for me where I realized, like, who do I think I am?
Yeah.
How
dare you?
How dare you?
Yeah.
But
why are you the way you are?
But I was just like, I had this instinct, and I didn't really like even want to do it. It was just the first thought.
Jumped, yeah.
That, like,
I've had
jumped
this
at me,
so many times,
and so I had to wrestle with that.
Right.
And so this was like, I had to avoid those rash judgments, because I wanted to make a judgment upon this guy and like condemn him. Mm-hmm. You sinner, get out of here. You can't, don't even touch Jesus. Like, don't let him touch him.
Yeah.
But, I have no idea what his situation was, but how often does that happen where we see stuff, especially on the road?
We're much more fair, like, Pharisaical. Thank you.
Pharisaical. Yeah.
Than what we want to believe.
Totally. So the next one is a little bit different. It says, overcome spiritual dryness. This is once again one of the ways to crush the head of Satan.
Overcome spiritual dryness.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we need to overcome our spiritual dryness, and they really sum up. There's a lot written about being dry, spiritual dryness.
Yeah.
Spiritual dryness is a necessary step on the spiritual life, infused into our souls by the Holy Spirit, so as to wean us from everything which is not of God.
Yeah, I was about to ask you, why do you think that's a necessary step? But then it kind of gives it.
But most who assume they have, who have it, in fact, do not, but rather have only begun cutting away unhealthy attachments to the world. When spiritual dryness takes root in worldly people, it is almost certainly from the devil, who sets all engines at work to make us negligent, to lead us out of the way of perfection and plunge us again into the vanities of the world. When you find yourself suffering spiritual distaste and dryness, look to whether it is owing to any fault of your own, and amend it at once, not so much with a view of regaining the sweetness which has changed into bitterness, but to banish everything that is in the least displeasing to God, and to dispel any occasion for the cunning serpent to work upon the soul. So I think their point is a good one about most of the time when people encounter dryness, it's not because of you've reached some level of holiness, or devoutness. Maybe it is, but most of the time it's actually you've only like you have the first fruits, like the early shoots of like moving towards like the spiritual life, and Satan is oppressing you, okay, and that needs to be rejected, like, and you need to just double down, focus on Christ. Think about, okay, is my path still straight? Am I beginning to wobble? Those kinds of things. Number 22, prepare for the trials of faith.
It's 23, actually.
You're right. I was looking right at it. It's 23.
Yeah.
Prepare for the trials of faith.
Okay.
If the enemy offers a captivating and fallacious argument, do not enter any dispute with him. Let it be enough to say with indignation, "Begone, Satan, father of lies. I believe only what the Holy Catholic Church believes."
I love that. I love that. Yeah. I only believe what the Holy Catholic Church believes.
And that's it.
And nothing else.
That's why I'm not on social media. It's not part of the deposit of faith. But I think trials of faith are to be expected.
Yes.
I have definitely had moments where, and tell me if this happened to you, but I have had moments where
typically you probably know this.
Everything about the faith in that moment appears ridiculous. And I am just all of a sudden questioning, like, do I even believe in God? You know, and it just seems silly to believe in this, like God who's like, oh, he's mysterious and hidden, and it's like, am I just lying to myself about all of this? I have definitely had moments in my life, praise God, not that many, because they are not pleasant. And then I have to sit there and use my intellect, and this is why it's so important to be well versed in the faith, to bring our intellect into what we believe. Okay, it's not just like
faith and reason.
Yeah, faith and reason. In fact, the faith is reasonable, and it needs to be reasonable, because in those moments, if you don't know the why behind the faith, then it's going to be easy to be swept away. Because those moments, they're there to test us, they're there to strengthen us. But if we're not firmly rooted, we'll be washed away. Does that ever happen to you?
Oh yeah, and I think that happens a lot with death. On the deathbed, right? Those who have,
yes,
lived their life. Right. Lived their life well.
They often have like terrible temptation, like towards the end. I think you're right about that. Number 24, do not give up. Whenever we are engaged in a work of piety, prayer, or anything else, we will experience a certain level of dryness. Sometimes we are distracted by worldly things, and we have a powerful desire to stop our prayer, and then not to come back to it. Keep at it, and you will discover the great advantages to be gained through a humble perseverance in works of piety when attended with the most irksome spiritual barrenness. To unmask the serpent in these trials, when preparing for any work of piety, if some business arises to distract you, put it off and make prayer first. Make your prayer first. If you begin to pray but find a burning desire to check social media, banish the thought and focus on prayer.
I love when Bellarmine says that.
Yes. And do not go hastily into pious works, but prepare yourself for a few minutes with prayer beforehand. Number 25. Anything on number 24?
I think perseverance is so key. I think we should pray for that virtue all the time. One of the things that I try to do in prayer is I pray for the wisdom to know God's will, for the fortitude to carry it out, and for the perseverance to see it through. And so I think that it's so important that we can actually know his will. We can actually start moving towards his will. But at any point in time, we could just stop, and we can drop the ball, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so it's so important to have the virtue of perseverance. This is why it's so important from a natural level to finish the things that you've started, to finish that project that and this is just a mirror looking at myself here, to finish the projects that you've started, to whatever you're working on, to see it to completion, and not just to be like, oh yeah, well, it's good enough.
Yeah.
I'm going to move on. because like no, you're developing this habit. You're developing your will to move towards a completion, to an end, and this is ultimately like what we're here on earth for, is to move towards our end, which is our Lord. And if we don't develop the habit of moving towards the end to our Lord, if we're not developing that habit even on a natural level, like when we get to our deathbed conversion, or when we get to our deathbed in general, and we're tempted by the devil, because he's gonna throw the kitchen sink at
everything
us,
he's got,
everything,
his last shot.
His last shot. Like if we have not trained ourselves in perseverance throughout our life, we may fall susceptible to his tricks. And just like how many times you look at people, who are pop stars or whatever, and you're like, how did you like sleep with some other woman like when you're married? Like, I can't believe you did that kind of sin. You know, like that's ridiculous. I would never do something like that. Like we're wretched sinners just like anybody else.
Yeah.
And like, don't fool yourself that just because you think you've seen somebody else do that and you think that that's not something that you could do, that's not something you're capable of doing, because you absolutely are capable of doing that.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I know that I'm capable of great sin.
Of terrible, horrible things.
Right. Yeah.
So perseverance is key. I mean, perseverance is such a beautiful virtue that actually gives you a lot of peace, and actually gives you a lot of, at least like personally, it gives me a lot of momentum and a lot of energy, because I see it like it gives me peace and energy, because it's like, okay, good, I did this. Yeah. It's complete. I've seen it through.
Every day,
I want to move on.
Every day in my prayer, my daily prayer, I ask God for all of the virtues, but I also like make a Christmas list of some specific ones.
Even during Lent?
I mean, like I'm just calling it a Christmas list now.
I'm just joking. Yeah.
But I tell him like humility, temperance, diligence. Diligence is like
another one. Yeah.
Yeah. Patience, wisdom, perseverance, fortitude, and prudence.
Wow, prudence at the end. That's interesting.
Yeah.
You could probably bump that up and like cover a lot more of those.
Yeah, but I try to have it in order of like the things that I suck at the most.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
maybe actually this is telling that you actually suck at prudence.
But, well, maybe. Maybe.
Because
who knows?
You're not governing your will very well.
He thinks he's so prudent.
Yeah.
He's the worst. I hate that guy.
All right. Hey, we made it.
This is 25.
We
25.
got there. Yeah.
Number 25 is God is victorious over the devil.
We're on the Lord's team.
We could have just skipped all of the first 24 and gone straight to this one. It says that in the beginning, man's animal passions were as a mighty fire that had just begun and raged fiercely. But God subdued them by the waters of the deluge and tempered them still more since by the waters of baptism. So basically saying that we need to make frequent trips to the Blessed Sacrament. Visits to the Blessed Sacrament are powerful and indispensable means of overcoming the attacks of the devil. Make frequent visits to Jesus, and the devil will be powerless against you. This is according to St. John Bosco. But, I mean, ultimately that, once again, we've said this a couple times, you're not going to do anything to Satan. He's way more powerful than you. God alone. But the thing, like, in fact, the reading today at Holy Mass on Sunday, we're recording on Sunday, if God is for us, who can be against us?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And he is for us. We've been baptized into his body.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we are one with him. We like... especially reception of the Holy Eucharist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Satan is incapable of existing in a space where Jesus is existing. Right? And so, once again, this is, I think, what Christ is talking about when getting into heaven, about making yourself like a little child and being utterly dependent on him as our source of everything. That is how you will defeat Satan.
Yeah.
Simply by being receptive to God.
I think that this is a very good bookend to the very beginning, the first one. Right? You know, the first one was fight valiantly against the devil, and to know that, like, hey, we're already...
Yeah,
like,
I think you're right.
Like, these two things, like, really bookend these 25 steps very well, because it's listen, the battle has already been won. It's a matter of, do you want to cooperate with it or not?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to be on the winning team, or do you not want to be on the winning team?
Right.
And so I think it's easy for us to think about, like, oh man, there's just so much bad and evil in this world, but like, listen, the battle the war has already been won. Like, Christ has already conquered death. And so it's a matter of like being like vigilant and fighting this fight well, to be on the winning team.
Yeah. I think it's another reason why it's so important to know the story of the Israelites coming into the promised land, and watching how God would fight for them. And they will even literally say, God will fight for us. Okay. Whether it's all of the plagues, all of the miraculous things that God was doing to bring the Israelites over. If we think that God is less on our side,
right?
Okay, he's not. He's more on our side now. The things that the Israelites had to deal with, the powers of Satan back then were so much more. Okay, which is why God was tolerant of so many more objectively bad things, right? We've got it. Is it like easy street? Now that we live in a redeemed era. So it's just so important, and you're right about fighting valiantly. How do we fight valiantly? By depending on the Lord for all things, and making Him our source, and just, it's not making Him our source. We're just recognizing that He is.
Yeah,
He's the source of strength.
I love it.
How do you do that? Have a prayer life.
This has been really great.
Yeah,
I've enjoyed this episode.
Wonderful. Me too. So I think go out and get the booklet. It really is a short book. I mean, we covered most of this booklet, but it is called 25 Ways to Crush the Serpent, put out by Tan Publishing. So
we're on the Lord's team,
the winning side.
So raise your glass.
Cheers to Jesus.